Gents, it's Autism Acceptance Week this week. Thank you for both talking to us. Just start off by telling us why it's important to you two.
Well, we've both got sons with autism. My son, autism, diagnosed probably when he was just 2, so it was quite early.
How old is he now?
12. Yeah, so it's been a up and down journey, but it's difficult, but it's been changing for the world.
Yeah, that's the same as Dino. I've got an 8-year-old son who was diagnosed early. He was diagnosed 3 or 4, which was really, really difficult to get a diagnosis at a young age. I think it's really, really tough. And I was fortunate that my wife really led the charge to get the diagnosis. She got that he wasn't your typical 2-3-year-old, and we got a diagnosis really, really quickly, and he's been able to have some good support since then, really.
Because it isn't that easy, even just to get in front of doctors, to find out and get...
No, you have to fight. Paediatricians will say it's too early. We can't make a decision till the 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and often that's too late. I think as a parent that something's not, they're not the same as other kids that you go to play groups and you go to classes and you go to play centres, and they're not typical of that age group. And then to try and get that diagnosis is really, really difficult. So you can go private, you can go NHS, and people are so reluctant to put a tag on something at such a young age. Yeah. And it's not a tag, it's the way they are, and it's about helping them for the rest of their life, really.
So tell us about the lads then.
Jay's 12. Just started his equivalent of senior school, which was a big worry, because obviously transition is difficult for particularly with children with autism. He's got ADHD as well, Jay, so he has medication for that, which has helped him out massively. We was a bit reluctant to go down that route. We found that quite difficult to start, medicating basically, but it made a big difference in his behaviour and how he could actually, you couldn't sit down for 5 seconds, let alone do any work. So he's done really well at this new school, which is good. But yeah, there's obviously different. There's such a big spectrum, isn't it? Like Jay's 12, but he can't do anything for himself. Do you know what I mean? Even the simplest things, going to the toilet. Do you know what I mean? For example, so he's still like a little toddler, really. So but it is what it is. Do you know what I mean? I always say it can always be worse. You see these children from a young age, with cancer and things like that, with only a year to live or something. So never grumble.
As Dino said, it's such a wide spectrum. You've got non-verbal. Fortunately, my George is verbal. Sometimes you can't shut him up. But he is, as well as autism, he's got ADHD and dyspraxia. But he's in mainstream school at the minute, which is massive for us. He's got a great one-to-one, and we managed to, again, through my wife's persistence and dogginess, get a really good, really strong EHCP, which is an educational healthcare plan in place, which we had to fight. We had to fight, local councils to get in place, to get the funding to fund the one-to-one. The one-to-one, she's brilliant. She's absolutely brilliant, and has helped him on his educational pathway to thrive in mainstream school academically. But where he struggles is emotionally, and sort of changes in routine, sudden noises. I mean, it was his 8th birthday party last weekend, and we've got all his class there having he didn't want your typical party. He wanted just pizza and a burger and a bit of a laugh and some background music. And one of the parents has got the entire class together in the best of intentions and wanted to do the old 1, 2, 3 cheese. And the fact she'd gone cheese and everyone shabby cheese, that was it. He really, really struggled, and you've got to then to sort of calm him down. The kids get it, because the kids see him occasionally have these, I'm going to call them outbursts, meltdowns, whatever you want to say. But they see in the class, and they're so accepting of him and the way he is. But the parents are like, what have I done? And it's like, no, you didn't know. It's
So in terms of those sorts of discussions then, because I don't know whether they're easy or difficult, when something does happen that triggers something, or there's a moment where the lads are struggling to do something, or even just fellow parents who you might see every single day. Do you instigate conversation today? Is it awkward for them? Do you feel it? I know everybody's different, but
the longer it goes on, the more accepting his peers' parents are. The kids at that age accept that everyone's different. It's great to see the age group that he is, that there's such a diverse class and everyone's accepting of everybody else, which is great. When I was 8, 9, 10, that wouldn't have happened. So I think from that, I think the parents, because what we did on day one of when he went to primary school was basically send a note to every parent explaining who he is, what he does, what his strengths are, and also what his weaknesses are. And his strengths, I say, academically, he's the best at mental arithmetic and times table. He could read, and because of the autism, you read him something, he can recite it straight back to you. You take him somewhere once and he knows how to together. He'd been to the training ground twice, came once in COVID, and then 18 months later he came and he was directing me off Junction 8 to the M65 down the hill, up there, turn left, and he knows everybody, When Sean Dyche left, he's like, well, why's the gaff left? Because he was the gaff, and now he associates the gaffer now as Binny. But that he struggled for a period of understanding why the gaffer had left and why Binny's now here. So that change, he struggles with and routine. You could set a clock by him in the morning about, he'll be up at X o'clock, he'd go downstairs, he'd do this, goes to the toilet religiously at the same time, every day, watches things, and that's his routine. You deviate from that routine and it has a negative impact on him for the rest of the day. It's almost like I don't know about your boy, Dino, but it's like a glass that's getting more and more full. So the more change, you can see it's affecting him, but eventually, once that glass is overflowing because there's so much change, that's when we have the issues.
Do you have those sorts of conversations?
Yeah, it's just, obviously, Jay has never been in sort of like mainstream school. Obviously, he's always been at a specialist school, so it's a little bit, in terms of that, it's easier because obviously there's a lot of children with autism, do you know what I mean? So the parents, we all know the situation, and if someone's having a meltdown, you just think nothing of it and you just try and help them, do you know what I mean? Whereas if you're out, people don't, because with autism, it's not like you can look at someone and go, oh, there's something not right, you know what I mean? Because they look perfectly normal children, but they just obviously see the world differently. But yeah, it's getting a bit easier now. He started wearing ear defenders because noise was a big thing, but he would never wear them. So simplest thing of going to a restaurant, we'd go to a restaurant, but one of us would have to go in first, see how busy it was, ask for a table in the corner, and if we couldn't get a table in the corner, that was it. We have to go somewhere else, do you know what I mean? Because he just couldn't be in the middle around thing with loads of noise. But now with the ear defenders, I think it lets people know a little bit, okay, there's some. So when he has these little moments, or he's shouting loud, or it's not a big deal.
Yeah, you've nailed that. I think in terms of there's no visual signs of autism until you meet that person, is there? And there's not one type of autism. That's why it's called a spectrum, isn't it? Because there's all sorts of different ways that it manifests, different problems, the ways that it affects people. Yeah,
and that's it. And ear defenders. People associate autism with people with ear defenders, and that's not always the case. It's too simple to put a stigma going, autistic, he's got ear defenders, or so autistic, stick some ear defenders over that's not what autism is. But to Dino's point, we have similar problems when we go out for food, not necessarily from a noise, because we'll take an iPad and make sure that it's connected to the Wi-Fi and things like that. His obsession when we go for food now is making, if the restaurant's got an app, so we can download the food on, which you tell him not to order sticky toffee pudding for dessert, and next new sticky toffee pudding for dessert arrives. So there's things like that and because of his, as I said, he's so aware and can remember things. One of the errors that we made was sort of giving him the debit card details to put in on an Amazon purchase he was making, and then one morning he came downstairs and he was in floods of tears, and he's like, don't tell mummy, don't tell me. So he booked a weekend at Centre Parks because he loves going to Centre Parks, But that's because he can remember the card number, the expiry code, the 3 digits on the back, in the same way that the Wi-Fi code, whenever your Wi-Fi trip's out, you've got to reset your Skybox, and you've got that long mix of numbers and capitals and things like that. He's like, well, that's the password's that. And it's like, it's an amazing sort of ability. And you just hope that in the future that, with the support, that can be enhanced into everyday life and into, he's ambitious to be an air traffic controller. And you think, purely because he can sort of visualize, and he's obsessed with flight radar of where planes are going, and you sort of, you can see him sat there sort of going, well, that aircraft he's in, without knowing what's going on the computer in front of him. So he's it's brilliant in some respects. It's challenging in others, and I think both of us are lucky that we've got wives who are really, really supportive and fantastic. And I know when you were a player, it was difficult because you're away.
Yeah,
and now you're in coaching, you're away at the key times of the day, which is sort of be like the end of the day, which is massive. And sort of like when you're away and sort of thing, you were indebted to them to provide that sort of care and support, and the people that are around. My in-laws provide massive support, and we'd be lost without them, I think.
Yeah, I think that was the difficulty for us, because obviously we're from down south, my wife's from Norwich, so we're up here, we've not really got anyone, do you know what I mean? Like, obviously parents come up whenever they can, but obviously they've got work and their own lives sort of thing. But so that was the difficulty. And obviously when I was playing, there was times where like you didn't want to. Well, when Jay got diagnosed, I think we went to Austria or something the next day on pre-season, and it was torture. Do you know what I mean? Because obviously, as you do, first thing, I didn't know too much about autism. Lauren's got a couple of family members that have got autism, but I never really sort of knew that much about it. So then obviously you do the worst thing, you start Googling, and I wasn't sleeping at all because I was just Googling all night about autism. And then eventually it was Sean Dyche was obviously the manager, I had to say to him, listen, I need to go home. So I stayed for a few days, and because I wanted to be there with my wife, do you know what I mean? Because obviously she knew a lot more about it, so she knew how difficult it was going to be, and I was a little bit sort of unaware. But she's incredible, my wife. I know everyone will say that, but she really is. Like I said, at the minute I'm on a new journey with the coaching. Like Matt said, it's evenings at the minute, and evenings is the most difficult time with Jay because his meds wear off. So all of a sudden he's hyper, and he's very much daddy. Do you know what I mean? And so when there's times we have to sit outside his room for 2-3 hours before he goes to sleep. So when I'm not there, she has to do that, and we've got 2 other kids as well. So a lot's on her, do you know what I mean? But she's always been so supportive of everything I've ever done, do you know what I mean?
So just finally, this Autism Acceptance Week, it's not all football clubs do it. In fact, very few, I think, do acknowledge that it's there. So for the game against Wolverhampton Wanderers, it's a real concerted effort by this football club. How much does that help, and what maybe does need to change going forward?
I think it's massive. I mean, first and foremost, Dean spoke about the way Sean was and allowing him to come back from pre-season. Both the previous ownership and this current ownership have been brilliant with me. Whenever I've needed to go to be anything, or they understand that you need to be somewhere with them for an appointment or to give an additional support at home, the club have been brilliant. Sean, even now, whenever you see Sean at a game, he'll always ask how the little man is, because he met him a couple of times and he got him. I'm sure Vinny would be the same if Vinny had met him, but the club have been fantastic. And, I think this is the 3rd or 4th time that we've supported Autism Acceptance Week, which is massive. And any exposure that we can give as a football club and as people to what goes on, because, it's all around you. And I think as a parent, you tend to spot other families who've got kids with autism or that they could be on the spectrum, and you sort of like you glance at your wife and nod, and as if to say, oh, yeah, he's on the spectrum, or he's in the nicest possible way. So for me, it's massive. I know that we're developing the sensory room at the stadium, but there's so much we can do to highlight autism and the different types of autism, the way, like you said, the various of it on the spectrum. I think it's magnificent. And, you know, I know that the national charity really appreciate everything that we do as a football club to highlight this week, which, you know, for me, I'd get every club in the land to do it, because it costs nothing to support it, to, you know, players, T-shirts and engagement and stuff like that. For me, it's massive, and I'm truly appreciative of it.
Yeah, I think it's brilliant, because when I was a player, it was never really, no one really mentioned at all, really, was it? You know, there was no sort of coverage of it. I always used to wish I was more of a high-profile player, so I could have obviously have tried to do something, but obviously, unfortunately, it wasn't good enough. But no, I'm really pleased that obviously I think it's becoming more aware. And it's weird when you finish football, you start speaking to people, and there's so many players with children with autism, and 90% of them are crying out for help, because, like I said, it's so difficult. And like Matt said, I was fortunate to be at a club where there was very, you know, you need time with the family, no problem. Do you know what I mean? Whereas, unfortunately, it's not always, you're not always blessed with that, really. So I think there's players families that are struggling, but not able to reach out and just say, listen, I am struggling with this, do you know what I mean? And could do with a bit of help. So I was thankful for that. And, you know, that's why Burnley's a special club.